So thanks for joining, everyone. As Luke said, today is not just about a presentation where everyone takes a back seat, listens, and then we all go away at the end, but it's more about having a conversation, bringing everyone together. Let's chat through what our understandings are, our perspectives. Let's share that, and please treat this as a positive, open environment where we can share some things. We will maybe at one point have breakout room where there won't be anything as part of the recording. So again, that'll be a positive, safe environment where you can maybe open up a little more on that as well. So yeah, title really, more talk and more action. We tend to be more about the action side of it in sport and physical activity, but actually that talking side of it is just as important, especially at these times, and making sure that we're helping around that theme of mental health and well-being. So just for me, I work across disability and inclusive sport on a day-to-day basis. So I've done that for the last 16, 17 years, which makes me sound a lot older than I actually am, but started at a very young age. But yeah, happy to share anything from kind of my personal experiences, my working experiences, things like that. But I'm just here to start the conversations and with all of you in the room, hopefully sharing your experiences and your perspectives as well. Okay. So going to get you started straight away. We can either use the chat to do this, or when we come to it in a minute, you can unmute yourself and share it, which would be great if you can. I'm just going to show a little video clip to help you with this, but then once we watch the video, I want you to think about, doesn't have to be sport and physical activity, but I am happy when. So it could be walking the dog, it could be playing football, it could be, I don't know, having a glass of red wine or anything like that. But when is a time that you are happy, you feel happy? So I'll just go into this video clip first, and then I'll come to everyone to share. I'm not going to play the whole video, so don't worry.
I'm happy when I'm with my family. My mom, my dad, my sister, and me, and my two brothers. I'm happy when my sister Fatu helps me read. Every time I don't know how to read them, she just helps me read the words. I am happy when I hear kind words, like thank you, you're welcome. We are happy when we dance about cha-cha-cha.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Well, give me all you got and don't hold it back. Well, I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Hey, go. Bring me down, can't none.
Okay, All right, bring it back. Interesting video. For me, though, all those answers are exactly the reasons that we take part in sport, physical activity, and linking in with other people, going to clubs and those sessions and things like that. So hopefully a lot of those things resonate for you, and hopefully what we should be thinking about when we're setting up our clubs and activity programs. If these are the reasons that people are happy, these are the things that make people happy, then that's got to be our starting point of how we set things up, how we create things, how we make sure that those environments are right for people. So if anyone is happy to share, you can either use there's the hand up function. So you can click, I think it should say reactions, and you can put a hand up. Or if you can't find that, then you can just unmute yourself. But I'm just going to stop sharing the screen. If anyone wants to unmute and come back to that question, I am happy when, or if you saw anything in the video that you thought was quite good, you can share that. Okay, so seeing one in the chat, I'm happy when hiking. Great, brilliant. Is there, Rowena, do you want to share that? Do you want to unmute yourself and tell us why?
I actually work for a mental health charity in Leicester, so this is all quite sort of relevant to me. But yeah, I love hiking, and especially at height. So getting up to, mountains if possible, that kind of thing, because I just like that feeling of being in a vast space. So yeah, that's what makes me happy.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, anyone else? If you want to type in the chat, or if you want to let us know, hands up or anything like that. While you're just having a bit of a think, I was trying to note down some of the ones that I spotted on the sign. So there seem to be some themes about being together. So being together with other people was on some of those signs. Helping others as well was one that came up. About being active. So playing sports, or even to an extent there was watching sports. Dancing was a big thing. And then the last one I noted down, I know said about being together, but it was specifically about being with friends as well. So again, when we're thinking about how we set up a club or the process, or when we're designing our sessions and things like that, I would challenge how many people think about togetherness, helping others. I know sessions and stuff are maybe about teaching or developing understanding and things like that, but actually about helping the person rather than helping the player or the athlete. How many others is about, we all maybe in the area of being active, but again, does it matter how we're active? Things like that. If we're moving about, if I've got a funny running style, or if I can't quite kick the ball properly, I'm active. I might look like a bit of a clown, or I might whatever, but if I'm enjoying it, having fun, I've got my pulse raised, whatever, then brilliant. And also, one of the things I've been banging on for a number of years is this thing, friendships. Sport and physical activity traditionally, from my perspective, is always a technical session, or maybe if it's pre-season, then there might be a physical focus. So today we are going to focus on beating our time. We're going to focus on this skill of football, or we're going to focus on how we do this within basketball. But how many of our sessions are around, okay, today's going to be about building our confidence. So there are going to be so many things where we score loads of points, or we have loads of success. Or Kim's on the call as well, and we discussed in the running workshop we had last summer about, when we go running, do we encourage those conversations? Running clubs are traditionally really good at this, but again, and across all our sport and physical activity, instead of having a technical focus, can we put a question of the day there? Today, what went really well, and maybe what wasn't so good? Right, we're going to go for our run round the park, do our 3 laps or whatever it may be, and as you're running, let's have a chat about these things. And that is going to be our focus for the session, is the conversation, not actually the distance we cover or anything like that. Kim, do you want to share anything from a running club perspective? I know that you're quite good at the that social side of it.
Yeah, I think with the running clubs, it's quite a natural thing as well to kind of, you build up that rapport, you build up that talking. The miles go quicker if you're talking to each other. So I think naturally the conversations happen. We've been focusing a lot on mental health in different running groups and stuff. We've had special mental health days. People have sort of turned up with badges on saying whether they've got mental health problems, or something they want to talk about, or a different mental health issue they want to discuss. So yeah, we openly encourage it in the running groups, and yeah, it's just a natural and easy environment to get people chatting. And
do you want to share the point that you put in the chat for us as well? I quite like this.
Yeah, no, I'm happy when my children are happy. I think lockdown in particular has made me think like this. I'm a single parent. I've got 3 little girls. So when lockdown first hit, it was a massive shock to the system. I had 16 weeks without another person in their life. So they didn't see their dad because he was self-isolating for medical reasons. So it was just purely me and the 3 children. And I think it's just made me really happy that I've been able to keep them happy during those 16 weeks. I was the only person they had. And yeah, and just to see that I could keep them happy. We had some lovely days together. We've made some lovely memories. And yeah, I'll take that from this year.
Brilliant, thank you. The reason I wanted to pick up on what Kim just put in the chat there and shared about, she's happy when her children are happy. Obviously, that's a thing by being a parent anyway. We want our children to be happy, but then we'll come on to this towards the end of the presentation. But there's this thing of your happiness sometimes and your well-being can be about encouraging that and developing that in others. So it's this kind of serving others builds a sense of well-being and empowerment and happiness within ourselves. So it's not always just about, I need to do this to make me happy, but when I do things to make other people happy or see the happiness in others, then that builds it within myself, and it's a shared experience as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Kim. Right, so I'll get back to the shared screen, and then if there's anything else throughout that comes up, please feel free to share with us, and share when we have a bit of a breakout in a little bit. Okay, oh, not a video again. Right, so these are the kind of key points that I want to cover today. And as the title says, this isn't a presentation, this is a conversation. So please do share if anything pops up and you think, oh, what? Or I had a moment when this, or I have a view of something, then feed that in, because we want everyone's perspectives to form part of this conversation. So I want to talk about normalising mental health and touch on what are stresses and coping mechanisms. Are they good? Are they bad? How do they feed into our mental health and well-being? Then we're going to talk about ourselves as an individual and how we build that positive self. There's a lot of talk about talking more about mental health. Yes, we need to talk more. Yes, we need to have more conversations. But actually, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And is it just about having a conversation, or is it about having meaningful conversations? And then want to talk about this idea of mattering as well, that links into some projects that I'm part of at the moment, but actually underpins a lot of what we're talking about today. As you'll see, these transitions on the slides are very slow, so it makes me think the technology is not working. So this idea of normalising mental health, and I had a great conversation yesterday and just mentioned it to Luke and Kim just before we started, that the many negatives of COVID, yes, but actually it's been, in my mind, it's a great mental health awareness program. because every person in this country or around the world in some way is being impacted, and it's changing what you can do, it's changing who you can see. It's having, to an extent, a negative impact on the whole world at the same time. And what better way for us to be able to realise that others are going through things, and that shared experience? Because a lot of the time, yes, we can say that we understand when someone is going through a very tough time, but, we can try to, but I don't think we really do. We can do our best, but at the moment, because we're all going through this COVID situation, we can all share those experiences and we can see similarities. So again, we understand about our mental health, our mental well-being being impacted maybe negatively, but hopefully we're also picking out a lot of the positive things as well to help us. But when we're talking about mental health, a lot of the time it's always a negative conversation. It's always about mental ill health, about mental health problems, and we only really think about it when it does get to that end of the spectrum, when it's a problem. So if we're always having negative conversations about fixing problems, then we'll always know about problems. So what we've got to do is flip this conversation and think about, right, how do we have positive conversations about mental health? And health isn't, only a negative thing. We know that if we do sport and physical activity, then we have very good health. We become very fit and we build our energy and we become more active. So it's the same on the mental health side of things, that it's not just mental ill health, but actually how do we build ourselves? How do we have positive conversations about ourselves being very mentally well? And that's for me where I talk about this deficit perspective. We're always thinking about what we're missing, what we're lacking, what the problem is. And if we think in that way, then we'll always see ourselves as not being good enough or having problems. Whereas if we start to think about the opposite side and the positives and the strengths that we have, then we'll empower ourselves and empower a lot more people as well. So what I've tried to do is put some points on the main slide, but then also from a practical perspective, put some little ideas here. And again, happy for people to share any light bulb moments or thoughts and things like that as well. But this is where I said earlier about having a session focus where it's social or psychological theme, not just a technical or a physical, but actually, can we focus on connecting people? Our session is going to be, we want more people talking. That might be some people's nightmare if we're working with young kids and you're trying your best to get them to be quiet a lot of the time so you can say what you need to say. But actually, maybe one week, right, brilliant. Those conversations between kids or between participants is amazing because they are connected, they're enjoying it, they're loud. So that means that actually there's lots of conversations going on. Said about this. So this spectrum of health is what I touched on before, that it's not just about negative health, but the full way, and we're continually up and down that spectrum on a daily basis. Maybe before this session, those who were organising and planning, and for myself, you're thinking, oh my God, this presentation, I've got to get all the technology working, everything right. I hope everybody turns up. So your mental health might be strained a little as the stresses increase, but then once we're into it and everything's working and we've got people in and we're at ease, then maybe that eases off a little bit. So again, it's that spectrum that we're continually moving up and down. Also mentioned about strengthening our successes. So again, let's celebrate and talk about when we're going through very good periods, when we are happy, the things that do make us happy, because if we know the things that make us happy, then we can strengthen that. We can do more of it. We can repeat it. If you know within your sessions and your environments, the things that keep people coming back, that make people think it's a place for them, then you can do more of that. If we always focus on, okay, our feedback, come on, list all the problems, then we're constantly trying to fix all the problems. But thinking about how do we focus on abilities, so abilities of individuals, but also the abilities of our sessions and our environments as well, so that we're working from a positive side. So we're not just about being always about fixing problems, but actually strengthening and creating environments which are really attractive and positive to get more people involved as well. Okay, so going to give you the opportunity just to have a bit of a chat in a minute, but this is one thing that always I always talk about around mental health and well-being. We always use this word stress as a very negative thing. Oh, I'm stressed. Oh, I've got too much going on. But if I said to a lot of people, you have to have stress in your life, you need it, and people might look at you and think, well, what are you talking about? Well, when we talk about stresses, these are the things that, demand of us or require things of us. So, Kim's mentioned about her daughters. So she'll probably laugh when I say this, but her daughters will be stressors in her life. Sometimes maybe for some of the wrong reasons, but then at the same time, they are stressors that we need to have because it's like me this morning taking the dog for a walk. The dog will be a stress in my life because it's something that demands and requires of me. But that going out and walking the dog is really important for me and helps me to feel that I matter, that I have a sense of purpose, that something that, requires me to be there for them and to support. And that's the same with our friends, our family, our jobs, all the things that we do. To give us a sense of purpose in the world, we need to have these stresses that demand of us and require our time and require your skill set, your experience, your time and attention. Then we've got our coping mechanisms. And again, we think, oh yeah, coping mechanisms are absolutely brilliant because we need as much of that as possible because that helps us to deal with the stresses. But again, if we have too much of a coping mechanism, then that can be a bad thing for our mental health. So if going to the gym is our coping mechanism, brilliant, that's your time away from things, time to release a bit, maybe get the blood flowing and things like that. But then if we get to the extent where, well, I have to go every single day and I have to do this much activity, and you're getting to the point where it's taking over, then that coping mechanism is too much. I don't know if it's the right place to say, but maybe, in an evening sitting down, having a glass of red wine might be, a nice coping mechanism after a long day where things have got a bit too much, but I'm just going to chill. But then we know that if that alcohol intake is too high, then that coping mechanism actually might create stresses and become too much. So this diagram is all about how do we make sure that we remain in balance? How do we have the stresses in our life, but we also have the coping mechanisms? And when we're in balance, that's because the coping mechanisms that we have help us to manage on a daily basis those stresses, those demands and requirements of us. And that's where it's always about personally reflecting, taking a step back, realizing when our stresses are getting too high, or maybe when our stresses are getting too low. I tend to start, when I start looking on the jobs websites for working and supporting new organisations, I know that my stresses must be getting a bit too low because I'm now looking for another thing to fill that void. So this is about, personally reflecting, understanding where your normal level is, and then how you maintain that by keeping these two sides in balance. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen now. And in a second, I'm going to ask Luke just to put everyone into a breakout room just for 5 minutes. Luke, I think we'll do 2 breakout rooms because we've got a smaller group on at the moment. But what I want you to do is just have a chat and just say, what are the stresses in your life? Not just the negative sense, but the things that ask and require of you on that daily basis. And then what are your coping mechanisms? So if we can share from those two sides of things from you, and then I might just try and pop between the 2 breakout rooms if I can. So yeah, Luke, if you can sort that, that'd be great.
No worries at all. 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
5 minutes should be enough, I think.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, Everyone, you should get an invite to the breakout room shortly. If you can just join those when you're ready, that's brilliant.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I need you to sign it, yeah.
There you are, Sam. That should help allow you to do that now.
All right, I think we're starting to get everyone back in. Cool. So I don't know if anyone wants to share anything that you discussed in the two rooms around examples of the stresses, the coping mechanisms that you have. Again, we're not talking about mental health, so like we're not talking about the huge stresses, things like that, but the kind of day-to-day things that we talked about, all those day-to-day coping mechanisms that you have. So anyone want to share?
Keeping a routine going has been the thing for me, actually, because I'm working from home, well, like most people. But I was just saying to the others in the room, I tried to get in the habit of doing a run perhaps about 3 times a week before work, and it was just brilliant. It was a real boost, to start the day kind of thing. So I think kind of keeping some kind of structure and routine is quite important.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, and that's been a big thing throughout lockdown because we all maybe have our routines. We know that these days of the week I go to work, I have to leave the house at this time, or I take the kids to school at this time, and then now all of a sudden it's all been shaken up and changed. So you've now got maybe some of those stresses still, but now I haven't got the coping mechanism of that same routine. So it's creating a new one or figuring out, oh God, how does this work now? What is the way that we do that? So yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Anyone else?
Pretty much the same as Rowena. We kept the kids busy, and because all their clubs had stopped, and to reduce their screen time, because they're obviously homeschooling, they did it all on the screen. So I'd take them out to either do a run, a walk, or a bike, and they kicked off big time. I don't want to go out, but then as soon as we got back in, they were like, oh, I like that, and you know, all their happy endorphins. It was happy household again. But yeah, we felt routine, and guys most days needed to be done.
And that's the thing, when we have like an increased level of stress or change in our lives, sometimes we have those go-to coping mechanisms or go-to things in our lives, and we end up going, well, I'm stuck in a house, so I'll sit on the phone more, or sit on the iPad, or watching the TV more. And then if you don't keep track of it, actually, what was that coping mechanism in your life around, okay, chilling, watching TV or playing a game or something, ends up being, oh, well, that was my whole day. And that's when those coping mechanisms end up becoming too much. So that's where, like you said, Kerry, it's keeping an eye on that and going, okay, actually, we need to break this and maybe find a different coping mechanism, or break it up a little bit, you know, so they've got that variety to help us deal with new situations. Yeah. Cool. And I know both Ben and Georgia, we discussed about like work and things like that, that's kind of those stresses and things, the things that rely upon you as well. So that was good. Is there anything else that Ben or Georgia you wanted to share?
I think that pretty much covered it, to be fair.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Right. So I'll share the screen again, get the presentation back up. But thank you all for sharing on that. Some really good little discussions there, and I think quite easy when we start to look at it like this to maybe make your own lists and try and match things up. You know, I know that life's not just as simple as these two parts, but it is a nice thing to be able to just sit back and reflect and think about, okay, if stresses are getting too much at the moment, I'm realizing that. So what am I going to do about it to help me manage that? What are the things that I can do? So what are the things maybe that you've done more of in the past that make you happy, that or help you cope with things? So if it is about going out for a run or whatever it may be, can I do that now in a different way? Is there a different type of physical activity? So before I was going out all the time, but now if you have to be at home more, is it more, I don't know, doing some yoga or Pilates or some Joe Wicks Keep Fit in front of the TV or whatever it may be? We're all finding these new creative ways to do it. But yeah, for me, it's just that understanding that stresses and coping mechanisms both play a very important part in maintaining that balance and keeping us in a mentally healthy place. And it's not always about mental well-being is that I have to be completely happy and, you know, every day is smelling of roses, but actually realizing there are rubbish days and there are better days. But as long as we maintain a position where, you know what, the going out for a run or whatever it is at the end of the day helps me get rid of the stresses that I've had throughout that day, and then you can almost refresh the next day or a few days later and you're in a good place, then that is real life. It's just that when any of those get too extreme, that we get to a point where we feel that it's really now impacting on our day-to-day living, our mental well-being, and we feel that we're in a position where we maybe can't cope, or that thing is now taking over and we aren't able to control it. Okay, so moving on. So now coming on to conversations, and this is a big thing for me, is about meaningful conversations. Because a lot of the time when we talk about mental health, we all always very easily say, oh yeah, you know, you need to talk to your friends or you need to talk to somebody about it. Well, I've been through certain things in my life where I've opened up to people, and that was probably the worst thing that I did, because the reaction that I had from people was maybe not positive and actually made me feel worse about the situation. Or I had an example where I went to my GP and spoke to them about mental health, and all I got was, here, take this survey, go and fill it in, and then come back to me. I never went back because of the response that I got and how I was made to feel in that conversation. So again, it's not always just about saying, let's open up, let's talk more, let's have more conversations, but actually what is a meaningful conversation that is going to help and support, you know, you, or help that other person. So that's where taking this kind of model or these key words from a friend of mine who's a positive psychologist, to help us maybe think about those conversations a little bit more. And you might have your own ways of doing it or within your own settings. That first area about appreciating is appreciating who you are, where you are now, the successes and the positives that you have in your life. When I went through a little bit of a bad patch, the thing that kept me going was, actually, I am a dad. I've got the most amazing little boy in the world. I work in such an area that's really important, and I feel that I can make a huge difference and help others. So I had those things, and that was right there. I have a part to play here, that I need to appreciate myself and who I am, and the great things I have in my life. So again, that's really important when having these conversations, is helping others to understand that as well, that they do matter. They are important. They matter to you. They matter to others. They have a role to play. And there's a lot of things that, you know, are a lot more positive than maybe the negatives that are out, you know, that they think are really big at the moment. The next part of this is about, okay, we may be in a difficult place or a negative place right now, but let's imagine that future. Let's imagine that place that we want to be. If this situation isn't great, so I'm in a job that I hate, or that I'm in a bad relationship or a bad situation or whatever it may be, then okay, that might be the case, but what would you want to be the case instead? So what would be a happy place for you, a place where you feel mentally well? And then we've got to start to think about, okay, right, how can we realistically change that situation? So how do we design that change? What would be the steps that we can take? Who are the people who can support us with that? Let's understand about that process of change to take us from that negative place to a happy place or a better place. And that's when then all these kind of key messages that come out around mental health that can be very removed and tokenistic in a way, of phone numbers, support lines, websites and things like that we tend to throw out there very easily. Well, let's fit those into this conversation. So we appreciate who we are, where we are, and that we matter, that we're important. We think about that place that we want to get to, but then these kind of support lines or information or medical guidance or whatever it may be might be part of that design process of, okay, I need to go and seek support, or I need to go and find more information, or I need to understand more about this. And we build that into these conversations. And then that last part is about the doing. How do we now start to take some responsibility, to take some action, to bring about that change? Because again, we can all have lovely conversations, and then if I go home and carry on feeling like rubbish and do nothing about it, then I might stay in that place. And that's where positive conversations are really good and make us feel better for a period of time, and that really does have its place. But again, about meaningful change is let's make sure then, if we can, as much as possible, that those conversations do bring about a positive change. And that's where in the ideas that I've just added down the side here is part of that appreciate, let's celebrate success. I used to run football sessions for people with severe mental health issues and problems. Then turning up to that session was a huge success. It was probably the one time for a lot of them that they left the house. The rest of the time they would stay inside because they didn't want to leave. And this is, I'm talking at, you know, a more extreme end now of mental ill health, but a huge success was them leaving the house. Or it might be a huge success is having a conversation with someone or opening up or whatever it may be. But this is where if we get to know people, then we understand what are successes and achievements for that individual. So let's celebrate them and let's make people feel important and empowered and that they matter by celebrating those successes together and recognizing that. Then big thing for me generally in sport and physical activity is about setting individual goals. A lot of the time, you know, it's about competing with others or beating, you know, set times or set challenges and stuff like that. But actually, this is where I am right now, and this is the benchmark for me. And it's about me bettering myself or improving or maybe maintaining. But for me at this time and what I want to achieve, these are the goals, these are the targets. And again, when we start comparing ourselves to ourselves, then it's easier to have that plan for growth and development. When we're constantly comparing to others, maybe what others look like, what others can perform like and stuff like that, then it's always going to be a bigger challenge. We maybe use that to inform and support our idea of what we want to do, but ultimately it's got to be about I am doing this for me to improve on me. If I get to the same point as someone else, then fantastic. But that is a milestone in your personal goals and your personal growth. Then again, a lot of the time, mental ill health, it can be that we're now in a very extreme or very far down that mental health spectrum. So if we start to think, okay, right, we need to bring ourselves back to a positive place, that could be a huge jump. Or if not even talking about mental health, again, things, if we set our challenges and our goals based on others, that could be a huge thing. And again, you might go, okay, I'm not getting success here, so I'm going to stop. I'm not going to bother. But if we break these challenges and everything down into chunks, then we can celebrate those small successes that we mentioned earlier. Okay, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not the speed I want to be, the weight I want to be, the whatever it may be. But actually, I've improved by this much. I might need to do this much 10 more times, but that is a step of success to where I want to be. And then actually, when we get that success, oh, actually, I've achieved something. I feel better about myself now. I'm actually a step closer than I was before. So you know what? Maybe I'll do another step. And then maybe I'll do another step. And then it makes it a lot easier, whether it is dealing with, you know, a mental health issue or whether it is, you know, anything else about our motivations in sport and physical activity, but it helps make that easier. Then got here about having a clear support network. So that's not, again, it's not about just phone numbers, websites, professionals and things like that, but who is the person who you can maybe offload to? Maybe some things you can chat with your partner or whoever it may be, and there may be that friend who you can go out for a run with, and because they won't judge and things like that, again, it makes it feel a lot easier just to open up and have those conversations and feel at ease. And this comes back to how do we set up our clubs and our activities? How much do we put people really at ease to open up and just have conversations? Yeah, I've had a really rubbish day at work. So-and-so really, you know, wound me up and whatever. But now I've told you about it while we're running around the park or while we're having a game of football, I feel a lot better because I've been able to offload. Or it might be that we build those relationships within our club so that someone can say, you know what, I'm really not in a good place right now. And because you've got those bonds, that relationship with people, and you're supporting that as a club or whatever it may be, then it opens up those conversations a lot more. Yeah, and then I think we've already really gone over those meaningful conversations, but it might be utilising some of this within our sessions to say, right, today, as we're running around, let's have a chat about this. And it might be that I am happy when conversation, or whatever it may be. You know, my favourite thing to do, or something that went really well for me recently, anything like that. But it's those type of little nuggets that get the conversation started. And then it's like, if anyone, you know, if you go to the hairdressers, you know that actually you sit there and then you end up telling them your life story, and you're thinking, I don't even know this person, or I barely know them, and now they know everything about me. But it's that environment that's created that puts people at ease, and they know that they can feel a lot easier having those conversations. Okay, so next bit that I wanted to share really was reflecting on ourselves and thinking about ourselves. And this links back to what I said before about always thinking about mental health as being a negative thing, but how do you build and develop your positive self and see yourself positively as well? So this is where we're talking about, what do we do before the problems? Yes, there's time and place and ways to support people who are going through negative patches or dealing with issues, but that's reacting. How do we start positively from the start and make sure that we now take responsibility around our mental health and well-being as part of our physical activity program, as part of our planning for the season or planning within our programs? So how do we make sure that we have sessions and activities where we're building social connections, because that builds that network for conversations and gets people chatting a lot more. So then if I'm chatting a lot more to people, I'm less likely to feel alone and isolated and just trapped with my own problems. Again, if we're building confidence in people by lots of successes within our activities, then actually I'm going to feel a lot more confident to deal with my issues or anything that may come up. So building that best version of ourselves, again, by the way that we tackle problems or the way that we set up our activities, is how am I seeing myself in the best light? If we go back to that chunking of challenges, if our challenge is a million miles away, then you're always going to see yourself as being nowhere near it. I feel rubbish. I've still got so much more to do. But by chunking it, actually, I am achieving, I am doing well. So I am feeling positive about what I'm doing. I know I'm in a good place. I'm on the right track. And it's that bit as well as about that language we use to talk about ourselves and to talk about others. And again, celebrate those successes, make us feel good about ourselves and feel positive about what we're doing. So again, life is always going to throw challenges and problems at us. We're never going to be able to change that. But what we can do is make ourselves as strong as can be to cope with those issues when they do come up. So how do we maybe anticipate some of those challenges? If it's in football, for example, because I know that there's been some good examples with Man United over the weekend around injuries. How do we plan for injuries? How do we, when someone is not able to play football, how do we build within them so that they can cope through that injury, whether it's support, whether it's social connection, whatever it is? But a lot of the time we just focus on performing well, and then, oh, we've got an injury, oh, we've got something come up in our life, how do we deal with that now? But actually, how do we plan? So if someone does get injured, they're not able to do this, what we're going to do is, we're going to involve them in this way, or we're going to keep checking in with them, and maybe we'll have phone calls, or maybe we build those friendships within the group so that they're still connected and not left out, or whatever it may be. So how do we do that proactive planning? That means that when negatives come up, that maybe we're better able to deal with those things, or that support network is in place to support that individual. And this, I think, put it on one of the previous slides about building this positive culture around mental health, because we know who our first aiders are in our clubs. We know where the first aid kit is, or maybe the AED or whatever, and we know the phone number to ring if someone has an accident or an injury. But if someone is going through a difficult patch, then mentally, do we have the same access to the numbers for Mind or Samaritans or whatever it may be as we do to emergency services for physical injuries? And again, we've got risk assessments. So going through COVID, coming back to bringing schools back, one of the questions I was asking of the head teacher for my little boy's school was, within your risk assessment, what is there about mental health of the children? There's all the stuff about limiting infection, about social distancing, cleaning surfaces, all this sort of thing. But what about the huge change, anxiety and stresses around now coming back to school after all this change? So what are we planning for? So again, how many clubs have mental health and mental well-being in their risk assessments? Maybe to an extent, and this is just thinking aloud now, having a bit of a risk assessment around mental health. What things can come up, what are the risks, and what are our things that we do to help about it? We don't want to treat it in a very clinical way and like a risk assessment, but actually, what are the things that we proactively do? If we start to list the risks to people's mental health and well-being, we can then maybe go, actually, well, we can do this. We could have a WhatsApp group where people check in with one another. We can, have a question of the week to get people chatting, or whatever it is. So again, not always dealing with the negatives, but strengthening what we do want in our lives. So if the reason, things going back to what makes us happy, or why we do take part in our clubs and everything, well, if it is about my friends are there, my connections are there, whatever it may be, then let's strengthen that. Let's build that a lot better, and let's make that happen more. There might be things that, just happen by chance within our settings. Those conversations and relationships might just be that they happen while we're at our football sessions. But how do we strengthen that, and how do we encourage those conversations more? Because that's one of the main things that people are getting out of it. Yes, we enjoy having a bit of a kickabout, but one of the biggest things is I'm getting away from other stuff. I'm in a totally different place. So then how do we make that nice and relaxed and fun and enjoyable? So it might be, okay, people are just coming to my football session because they want to relax and chill. They're not actually bothered about being the best player, but we can give them loads of success by our activities being more of loads of goal scoring and things like that. And then the last point on here is, if we do all of that, if we're in a mentally good place, or even a physically good place, then we will play and perform a lot better. Again, it's not seeing these things as an afterthought when problems happen, but if we build that positive self in a physical sense and a mental sense, then it puts us in a lot stronger, better position to perform if we are maybe in a performance environment, whatever it may be. But this is like put on the bottom here about being that person focused before the player. So let's build that person. Let's know the person. Let's speak to the person. And then we, but as a byproduct, get a better player. But a lot of the time we're focused on the player. And then when the issue happens, all right, I didn't realize that you had problems going on at home. Yeah, because I didn't know who you were. I didn't know you as a person. So I only get to know the person by the problems that arise afterwards. Okay, so going to show a little video. Again, I think one of my favourite films, but when I watched it this morning, really brings about that thing about mental health and the way that we approach mental health. So I'll just see if it works here.
It is our mission here to rigorously and ruthlessly train the humanity out of you and make you into something better. We're going to make doctors out of you.
Well, I just believe there's more to being a doctor than memorizing facts about the ventricular
I
arteries.
don't care what you think. I care about my biology test.
Not even see a patient until the 3rd year.
If you want to become a doctor, we have to learn to treat the patient as well as the disease. That's why we have to dive into people.
You have a brilliant mind, and like many brilliant people, you don't necessarily think the rules apply to you.
It was so much more convenient thinking of you as an idiot.
That little ice that just chipped off?
If you want to be a clown, go join the circus.
For your own sake, I think you should just lay low for a while.
The hospital will cover all of your bills. Any other questions?
Patients are opening up to me, Corinne. They're sharing their dreams, their fantasies. They don't concentrate on the pain.
I'm warning you, stay out of this hospital.
What if a doctor becomes emotionally involved with a patient? What is wrong with that?
Patients don't need a friend, they need a doctor.
My name is Dr. Phil. I'll be your surgeon. Oh, there you are.
You are dismissed.
Sir.
From this school.
They can't prevent me from graduating because of a personality clash, can they?
Universal Pictures presents.
You are not cut out to be a physician.
Our job is improving the quality of life, not just delaying death.
The true story of a man who broke every rule.
Why am I such a threat to you, sir?
Because what you want is for us to get down there on the same level as our patients.
And proved that laughter
Donner, party of 50. Donner, party over here.
truly is the best medicine.
Close, salute.
Robin Williams,
You treat a disease, you win, you lose. You treat a person, I guarantee you'll win, no matter what the outcome.
Patch Adams.
So if you've not seen that film, I think show my age a little bit, but yeah, I definitely recommend watching it because it is completely opens us up and gets us thinking about mental health and you know, like it showed in that trailer, that we stop treating it in a clinical way, in a removed way, in that it's a negative problem, but actually it's just about people and personal connection and conversations and feeling at ease and feeling relaxed about things. So yeah, no, really good video, definitely one to watch. So now I just want to come on to this idea of mattering. So the idea that you matter, that you're important, that you have a purpose and a place in the world, and that, you know, you're important to yourself, but you're important to others, and that people value you within their lives, and you as a person. I think sounds a very simple thing, but something that we don't actually do enough of. We can think of people in our lives that matter, and if they weren't in our lives, then it would have a huge impact on us. But how much do we show them that they matter? How much do we make them feel that they really matter? And again, this is important within our clubs and our physical activity as well, that we don't want to get to the point of someone feeling that they don't matter and that they're not important, that then we think about this. But how do we ensure that everyone in our clubs feels that they do make a positive contribution, that it is important that they're there? So creating that secure base where, again, that person feels part of your environment, part of the club setting, and that they feel they're a vital part of it. One of the big things, if you look at some of the videos from Mind and stuff like that, my personal is a lot of people end up going to clubs and sessions even when they've had the most terrible day and whatever, because they feel that if they didn't, they'd be missed, or that they have a responsibility to go to that club. I think we all probably know of times when, you know, you've had the worst day at work or whatever it may be, you really can't be bothered, but you know, if you don't go, then maybe you'll be getting messages going, where are you? Or, you know, you feel like you'll be letting people down by not going there. So building that within people, again, maybe it gives that little kick up the backside that, you know, yes, I need to go there because you know, I'm an important part. I'm a member of that club. I'm part of that network of people. So then within that, how do we develop that environment which makes people feel that they matter? So that might be giving everyone opportunity to lead or to feed in on things. It might be, you know, celebrating those successes of people's contributions to things, those conversations where everyone is part of it, or linking in with one another, giving everyone their kind of opportunity to be part of that. And that's having this club culture, not just around technical and physical performance, but that social, psychological side of it as well. Put this thing about strength and conditioning. So again, building that mental strength and resilience. So find that strength in mattering, but then that conditioning is that we regularly keep that ticking over. We regularly keep people knowing that they're a vital part of our club, that you know, a club and session can function because of the people within it. So if we build that strength within each of the individuals, we build the strength in the club overall, and then our session themes or our activities should continue to live and breathe those values and culture every week. What we don't want is a club culture up on the wall going, yes, we're all about people, people are important, blah, blah, and then actually we do none of that. But how do we live and breathe that and keep that going in sessions week in, week out? And then I added this last point on this morning, actually, because it's like mentioned at the start, and I was just thinking about it, but and it linked into what Kim said, but this mattering cycle. So it's not just when you make other people feel that they matter, it gives you that sense of purpose. So by supporting, helping, and connecting with others, makes you feel better about yourself, makes you feel that you're needed or have a role to play. And then when you do that for others, then others will be likely to do that for you or to do that for others as well. So it's this kind of pass it on mentality, but also that it's not always about just making ourselves feel positive, but that sense of giving, of serving others creates that positivity within ourselves as well. So just going to give you this question. And like, if people want to share, I'll stop sharing the screen. But thinking this sense of mattering, where you feel, you know, important, or you feel that you have that part to play. For anyone, I don't know if there's a time or a place or somewhere where you feel that you matter, if it's to an individual or whatever. But if anyone wants to share, or maybe how you do that within your clubs and activities or experiences you've had. Okay, if anyone wants to unmute, yeah, Kim?
Yeah, I was just going to say with my groups, particularly like I work with beginners, so it's kind of like the Couch to 5Ks. And then we always celebrate at the end with a park run. So you've done sort of like your 12-week program, then a way to celebrate at the end is to take them to a park run. They get a given time and stuff. I've been doing park run forever. Like obviously every week it's a buzz to go and get a PB. I've been like the first female over the line and stuff like that, and nothing compares to the buzz of getting some ladies that have, you know, come with zero fitness, that couldn't get to the end of the street at one point, to then crossing the line of a park run, and just they're crossing it with tears, they're hugging you, they can't thank you enough, and give me that any day over a PB or anything like that. Like it just makes a job so worthwhile.
No, that's great, and thank you for sharing that. I think a big thing in that is the part you're playing in their life, the time and attention you're giving them empowers them, so that it's not just, well, I know I need to go out every night and do a run to get me to this place, but because you're taking them on that journey, it's that sense of connection and a shared goal and things. So then they feel they matter to themselves, but they feel they matter to you, and then, let's say, you get that sense of giving and helping others as well. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Ben, I was just thinking about you within a school setting for kids. What's working with young kids? What is there anything you think about how they feel, what makes them feel important, or what makes them feel happy, as if they matter when you're doing activities?
Yeah, so like in lessons, giving them ownership and things, so like say come up with their own games or their own rules, and then letting them be like the captain or the leader of that team. That usually helps a lot and gives them a lot of confidence.
Brilliant. Yeah, if I'm the captain, I'm the leader. Well, you know, it's that little bit of sense of power, but it's kind of like everybody wants to listen to me. They need me to be here. So like, what more, you know, what more can you have to make someone feel, you know, kind of important, and that they have a role to play and connect with others? Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I was just going to echo what Ben said. Sam, yeah, I do forest schools on before lockdown on Wednesdays with a range of different settings in Charnwood, and we do activities like through small achievable tasks, so setting fires, cooking their own food on the fire and things, and the sense of achievement that they get from that and empowered to do things. It's really good, and they just love and being responsible for things, which is really good because they just feel like they're part of their team, like the forest school team. Feel really responsible and like an adult, you know, because they're touching fire, they're doing things they wouldn't normally get to do at home and things. So yeah, that's quite nice.
Yeah, I think there's loads of bits there, just thinking through what you've said, like that thing you mentioned about responsibility. I'm being trusted to do this. You know, they must think a lot of me because I can make a fire. But if I did that at home, then mum and dad would be, you know, thinking, oh my God, what's going on? But yeah, this person is trusting me to do this.
We give them knives and potato peelers, so it's like, you can go and peel the carrots now. That do that. And I'm like, well, just ask, tell them at home, you know, you've done this today, can you have a go? And yeah, sometimes we just take children for granted, don't we, and just expect them to move along and do what we do as they're told, and not give them a chance to flourish. And
definitely. I think, you know, one of the things that I've always had to be conscious of, because my little boy is the chattiest, friendliest little boy in the world who will chat to anybody walking down the street. And sometimes I have to be like, no, you can say hello, but that's enough now. You don't need to tell them about what the dog had for breakfast, your favourite colour and every single thing. But then I sit back later on and I think, I've got so much to learn from kids, because we have this way of walking down the street and, you know, hello, and we're very limited, but kids are just so open to having those conversations about sharing every little thing on their mind and stuff like that. And it's something that we all need to learn from and do so much more of, and be less fearful of being judged, and just chat and be open a lot more.
Yeah.
I can imagine a lot of your kids as well, when they go home, they're like, Mum, I've done this, look at this, or know what I did today. And then that connection with their parents as well, you know, impressing their parents and things.
When I've done forest schools, when I've been, even myself, I've gone home at 23 and said, oh, Mum, today I lit a fire. I'm 23 and I went home and said it, like. So I can't imagine what a 10-year-old thinks.
Yeah, it's giving the positivity, isn't it?
Yeah. Annette, did you want to share something?
Yeah, it's funny because some of the conversations we've had today has actually taken me back nearly 20 years to something I did that, yeah, and just so much stuff is resonating. So I used to work on the American summer camps, and we ran for a few years, those for children that had lost their parents in 9/11. And so, you know, we took this these kids that had been through such a traumatic experience, and what we thought had the potential to be a really sad place, but it was actually a really happy place, because for once they weren't the child they weren't the one. They were all sharing that same experience, and the feeling you got for helping them and for making them happy, I still look back and, you know, my husband will go camp again, and it's like, yeah, because it was one of the best things we did. And, you know, we chatted to them about, we had skittles, and a different skittle represented a different thing, a different topic, and they would open up and talk about their experiences. And once one spoke, they all spoke, and they all sort of shared that. And it was just such a warming, I don't know how to explain it, I'm going now, but just sort of a really nice feeling to know that you were there to help them, and that sport and activities could really make that difference for them, and that they were so appreciative of it. Whereas a lot of the normal kids that did camp, it was the norm, but for them it was yeah. I just thought that was a good mental health example that just, I don't know why that came in, but it did. I thought I'd share.
That's a great one. I went through the summer camp, and also a very similar experience camp with kids from 9/11 as well. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and that made me just think as well about how within our clubs and everything, we've got this real niche environment where if you take responsibility, like as a leader, to be very open about stuff, then like you say, it opens those gates for others to go, yeah, actually I went through something very similar to that. But it's that who goes first, you know, that, oh no, I won't say that because then they'll all think this about me, or oh, you know, it's not the right place, or whatever it may be. But again, I think that's why examples like the hairdressers and stuff, they can get you to say anything, because they'll tell you a bit about what's going on with that, and like, oh yeah. And recently for me, I told the hairdresser more than I've told, you know, partner on certain things as well. So yeah, it's amazing. They should probably use them in MI5 or something like that. Cool. So just thinking to our clubs or sports settings where you've been, is there any examples from particular places or particular coaches, leaders, where you just felt that place was right for you, or you felt, you know, just really at ease? It is a real challenge to unpick what the kind of things were that made that happen. But I think this is one of the keys to success is, you know, those places where you just feel you belong. How do we then take some of those ideas and replicate that, and to make our, you know, to do that elsewhere? But I don't know if there's any positive examples from anyone. The school teacher one's always a good one, because, you know, they always say about, you know, everyone's got that one memorable teacher, and then a lot of people go, yeah, well, that teacher, you know, they always made you laugh, or they were always made a joke and stuff like that. And then you start thinking, okay, well, if that's what works for the teacher, then maybe instead of like having a very set structure, let's just keep things a bit more light and chatty and a bit of humour in there. Don't know, but anything else from anyone? Any clubs or any places where you've been? Or any memorable people?
I used to be in a volleyball team, and that was really good fun. And I almost went more for the social than anything, because there was just all this banter used to go between all the players. There was only about 10 of us used to go along, but it was just so funny. I was absolutely in hysterics sometimes, the stuff that, so I used to often think, oh, I don't know if I can be bothered. Then I think, oh no, it really cheers me up. We have a really good laugh. So that was quite good.
Great, thank you.
I think the LRS, when they do the workplace challenges, I always find those really good. You know, really good team building, but just to bring you confidence and working well as a team. I always thought they was quite good, to be fair, the workplace challenges.
How do they, I've heard a lot about it online, but how do they actually do that then? How does it operate?
So through LRS, they'll set like wheelchair basketball, volleyball, netball, and then you apply as like your workplace. So then you'll play against other workplaces in Charnwood and beyond. And then there'll be like points, and then at the end you'll get like a certificate, like first, second and third. So yeah, they're really good, motivating, and the teams.
And that's quite interesting that it almost disrupts some of that workplace mentality that, yeah, when you're at home, you're like this, but then when you're at workplace, well, I've got to be at my desk, and, you know, we sit like this and we work like this, and, you know, we have these so I've got my work relationships, and then I've got my friend relationships. And then you have that type of setting where you're like, I'm playing basketball with my colleague. What's going off here? So,
yeah. So I'm at Charnwood. So sometimes, even though we're in the sport team, we could have people from like say from accounts or from a different department who wouldn't normally meet. So then obviously we get to meet those, and then obviously when you see them in the corridors after, you'd be like, oh, it was a good game, or you did really well. And so that's always quite good to mix with people that you wouldn't normally mix with.
I was just going to come in on that, Sam. I think just highlighting what Kerry and Rowena said. It's almost having that leveler for everyone, isn't it? It's that we're all new to this, or it's like things like the challenges that we do through LRS is that the sports we play might not necessarily be our traditional sports that we've played or engaged with previously. So as I say, we had before COVID. We had a sports park kind of rock up and play lunchtime social football, and that, having played sport at various levels from social all the way through to elite, I can quite safely say that just that rock up session at that point of time in my life was the most important activity I did each week, because the guys and girls who played were all kind of not necessarily work colleagues. They're all from different organisations. So there was no cliques. There was no kind of team set aside. Everyone we all separated into two teams, and for an hour you could embarrass yourself on a pitch with your mates and have a laugh. And like you said, with and picking up on Annette's points with the level of kind of having that commonality, we're just doing this to manage a bit of work-life balance, have a download time between the morning and the afternoon work session that can get quite heavy. I think sometimes the environment you create and not making something too complicated is the most crucial thing you can do as anyone who's facilitating sport. Because if you just let us play for the reason we went and just accept that, like Kim said, people want to come to run and whatever they're there for to do that, we accept that. It creates a really positive environment. And I think it's also one of those things that, regardless of what level you played sport to or how competitive you are, the fact that we're just engaging in physical activity, it has a really powerful tool. And I think what COVID does is you realise how much you miss something. So like, I can't be bothered to put my football kit in the bag today. But every week since we went into that first lockdown, I've missed that football session. And they're not particularly, the people I play with are all really friendly and nice, but they're not my friends outside of work, or I work with them professionally and things like that. They're really good people, but I think it's just sharing an experience with other people that you do miss. And it's certainly taught me that those people I probably connect less with outside of work than I used to, that I need to connect more with them.
I think that links into one of the conversations you had in the breakout room. You know, this thing that I think a lot of people have said during the first lockdown and everything was, I've been given an hour every day to do physical activity. I've never done this much physical activity in my life. And, you know, people doing so much more than before. But then that brings out your point of, if you give someone an hour to go and do physical activity by themselves, it's kind of, I don't really know what to do. What do I go out for a run or whatever? And that's where the missing elements of that social connection, those laughs, that enjoyment, being with different people, new people, things like that. So, you know, yes, the physical activity element is really important, but then it's all these things that we need to go, you know what, actually, they're the things that keep people coming back. Not the, I'm this level coach, not that we're in this competition, not that, you know, we're a high performing team, but actually, yeah, it's the you know, the conversations we have. It's the fact that it's so light-hearted and we just enjoy it, and we can fall flat on our backside and, you know, not worry too much about it and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's making sure that we don't just sit back and reminisce on this stuff, but then actually, how do we make that happen more? Which is really important. But yeah, cool. Thank you, everyone. Right, I'll just get the screen back up, but we're about there now, probably a little bit over. So just wanted to share with you, just for awareness, if anyone wants to take a look, but this is a project that I'm linking in with a little bit at the moment, but this sense of mattering and getting people to understand how you matter, how you make others matter, how you have those conversations, and how we build that kind of strength and resilience with people, which then empowers us to deal with the day-to-day struggles or problems, or even the bigger things that come up as well. But by working together on that and building it into, you know, what we live and breathe, not just a reactive sense, but then we'll make a real difference and support people. And hopefully we build a culture across sport and physical activity of not reacting, not clinicalizing, if that's even a word, mental health, but actually normalizing it and very much working on developing and strengthening the positive side of it to then limit the amount of problems and negative side of it that we see, but then putting us in a lot better place to deal with those negatives maybe when they do happen. Okay, so Luke, overview, enough from me.